Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. And again, if you've tuned in before, but anyhow, I'm glad you're watching. For your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about whatever it is that they want to talk about. So my guest this evening to my right here is Mark Hughes, who has a lot of things we'll be talking about. Is an interesting character who I met a little while ago because my scheduled guest for tonight, something happened, he didn't show, so I pressed Mark in the service. So this is going to be really off the cuff and spontaneous. And just a few words in the parking lot and here in my control room, I thought, wow, we're going to need 3 hours. Mark, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
At the last minute, yeah.
Yeah, there are no accidents.
Yes. Usually I start off by asking my guests how they're feeling, and then I share with my guest how I'm feeling. Well, my anxiety and nervousness is diminishing already in the first 15 seconds of talking to you because you're very relaxing to be with.
Well, thank you.
So how are you? Are you nervous or happy?
No, I'm good. I'm feeling very grateful. I like I said, there's no accidents. I think it's amazing at times how things just happen the way they're supposed to be. I came here for a totally different purpose and started up a conversation with you, and here I am. So can't get any better than that.
Too bad we didn't bring your dog in.
Yeah, she's in the car. She's doing fine.
She's a delightful little fellow.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so typically a show goes in about 2 or 3 segments. The first segment I called the bio segment, where we talk about who you are, personal stuff, not too personal, you know, and what your interests or hobbies are, and education, whatever seems interesting or appropriate, depending on where we are in our conversation. Then the second part is we'll talk about the subject or the topic of the show by and large, which is family life coach, and that's one of the things that you're doing now in your life among the many other things you've been doing. So I will just say a couple words about who I am for the possible new viewers out there to kind of model what it is I'll be asking of you, and you can volunteer information you think would be useful along the way here. Of course, you all know out there I'm a retired clinical psychologist. I spend most of my time nowadays doing my show, preparing for it, research and all that kind of stuff. And my hobbies are social issues and political activism. Most people don't like to label themselves on the political continuum, but I enjoy doing it. I'm a left-wing, radical leftist socialist, constitutional American, patriotic American. And I'm also a humanist minister. I perform the functions of traditional lay people like a priest, a rabbi, or whatever. And I'm an actor, retired from acting. I've done a few films, did some stage work. The last thing I did was I played Hulk in Driving Miss Daisy, and love it. But I gave up theater in order to spend most of my time hosting and producing this show. So other small talk about me I'll forego because we want to get that from you. And your name is Mark Hughes. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Is that your full name or is there a middle name?
Mark's Cullimore Hughes. It's an interesting middle name. It's my mother's maiden name, and all the boys in our family took my mother's maiden name to continue that on.
That's
and
interesting.
We did it as well as in our family to continue on my wife's maiden name by giving them her last name.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So you like that?
I think it's good to carry that on because why is it the man's name gets to be carried on, the woman's name gets sometimes lost? So yeah, it's a good tradition.
You know, there's always something new under the sun. 7 years, I never heard that before. That's delightful.
Yeah, it's an unusual name, but yeah. People usually think it's Charles or something. And when I say no, Cullimore, they go, "How do you spell that?" So.
Okay, let's continue on. So, when and where were you born?
I was born in Nyssa, Oregon, over in eastern Oregon, small town.
Uh-huh.
And then we moved to Salem. We were there for a while. And then my family moved to Portland, and I basically grew up in the southwest Burlingame area. I went to Wilson High School, and then went on down to University of Oregon, and mostly been in Oregon most of my life. Yeah.
Yeah. So I noticed you didn't say when you were born. You don't want to tell us how old you really are because of the white hair?
Well, no, I was born December 22nd, so I got a birthday coming up very soon, 1957.
Okay.
I was supposed to actually be a Sagittarius, but I hung around for an extra month and waited right till it became Capricorn. I was born on the cusp, so I'm a Capricorn. So I went, I guess in those days they didn't induce labor, so I went a full 10 months. I was 9 pounds, 10 ounces. Big guy.
Do you remember that?
No. No.
You know, there's something else we have in common. I was born on the 26th of December at 2 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And I remember that.
Yeah.
Oh, it hurt. No. No, you're entitled to be silly too.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
This is going to be fun, I can tell, yeah. So let's continue on with my questions for you. Anything significant about your national or cultural heritage?
No, not really.
Plain old white bread American?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
And is there a religious preference? If I ask you a question and you don't want to answer, you can say, I don't want to answer that, or tell me where to go.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, I was actually brought up LDS as a Mormon, and basically practiced Mormonism for a good part of my young adult life. And then as I went off to college and was introduced to more liberal thoughts, perhaps, I explored more metaphysical and sort of new thought philosophy. So I would say that today I'm more of a new thought is my form of religion. Are you familiar with what that is?
I've heard it, and I've heard a few people talk about it, but here's a chance for me to ask you a little more about what's new thought.
Well, you know, everybody has could have their own definition or explanation of it. Personally, for me, it's that God resides within us and that we have the ability to tap into our inner resources, and God is everywhere present. And when we align our will with God's will, you know, magical things happen. And so that's kind of, you know, how it is.
Does God have a gender?
Well, God is everything, you know.
Okay.
You know, God is, you know, the flowers and the plants and the trees and you and me, and so I look at it more as a universal energy, you know, not necessarily as a gender, but a universal energy that's out there, and we as individuals tap into that universal energy, and that's what the spiritual part of it is for me.
What do you think about people who embrace other religions, even those that are rather conservative, like Muslims or Christians or whatever? What do you think about
Well, I think it's important for us to acknowledge that the most important thing is for people to have a spiritual orientation, and for people to find that you know it is about, you know, God, and it is about really, I said not necessarily about God, but it's really about love, you know, and kindness. And if people can find their spiritual path and expand and grow and extend kindness and love to all walks of life, whether they're Catholics or Mormons or New Thought or Buddhists or whatever. And I think when Colin Powell made his comment about Barack Obama, when they started to say, well, you know, what is his religious belief? He said, well, what difference does it make? And I think that's where we as a culture need to go, is to accept all walks of life and all philosophies, you know, as long as they are genuinely holding, you know, goodness and kindness on a universal level. If there's violence and acts that are going against people, then I'm not so sure that's a great idea.
Yeah, you mentioned spiritual. Define spiritual as you see it. What does spiritual mean?
Well, I think that's been the interesting part for me to explore as an individual, to grow up in a Mormon culture, and then to explore what spirituality or religion is versus spirituality. And I think that for me, spirituality is really tapping into that inner voice that happens within us. That there's, each of us, you know, have that little nudge or that little calling, that little voice that comes. And that voice, that natural knowing, and if we can be in tune with that, that's, you know, tapping into what I would say is our universal energy, our natural knowing, that spirit that resides out there in the world and within each and every one of us.
A person says, Oh, I feel spiritual. You ever feel spiritual?
Oh, I feel spiritual.
That's a leading
often.
question,
No,
I must confess.
Yeah, no, I feel spiritual often. As we sat down here, and here I have an opportunity to speak with you, I just very silently said, thank you, God. And I do that very often. And my form of prayer isn't necessarily dropping to knees and the formal kind of prayer that a lot of people would think about. It's really being in silence a lot of times and acknowledging the great things that are happening. Gratitude, just expressing your gratitude is a great form of prayer and a great form of expressing your spirituality.
Mm-hmm. I'm being a retired psychologist. I can't throw away my learning in that regard, and I've toyed with or looked at spiritual and what it means and what's it mean to say I feel spiritual, because in studying about feelings and that whole paradigm or realm, and I think of Daniel Goleman's book,
The way the
Emotions.
Oh, okay. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
What were you going to say?
Yeah. The primary emotions, the red, white, and blue of emotions are, I call it FADLESS, an acronym: fear, anger, disgust, love, enjoyment, sadness, shame, and surprise.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are things that happen in me that there's no given name for them. This takes me around to talking about what spiritual is. So when I say I feel spiritual, it's like a feeling that is beyond description. Perhaps it's all of the feelings, or many of them combined, but I'm aware of there's no time involved here. I feel a oneness of what you're talking about.
And that's the oneness with the connection with the universal energy. That's how I see it. So
maybe that's it, because then something, when I feel love, when I feel this connection, with another human being, and all thinking and all mental activity disappears, I'm just experiencing. That's spiritual.
Being in the moment.
Yeah.
At peace. There's a level of peace that comes, when you're in a spiritual space. There's peace, there's contentment.
Yeah, and Eric Byrne talks about it in terms of intimacy in the OTA model, transactional analysis. And this intimacy is when a person is fully experiencing their being, rather than thinking or analyzing or solving or deciding what they're going to think about next. Anyway, I'm digressing too much here. Let's go on with my cheat sheet.
Heavy conversation.
I knew this was going to happen. Yeah, I'm interested in learning, and that's why I ask you some of these questions, because now and then there's one that's stock, but then I'd go off because there's something I can learn from you. I can tell. Oh, you mentioned University of Oregon.
I went to UVO.
And you took a degree?
I went, no, actually not. I left early. I actually went down and studied theater for a while, and then got into political science, and ended up getting an internship with a county commissioner and managed his campaign, and he won, and then I worked for him for 6 to 9 months, and that was a good experience, and went back to school, and I was so entrenched in jumping into the real world that jumping back behind the books I was impatient and wanted to jump back out there, so I left and went back out into the world and left my college 1 year short.
And so describe your work history. What did you do to earn a living until now?
Oh, I've done several different things. When I left college and I went into real estate for a short period of time, that got interrupted by an opportunity for me to work in the film industry, and I just sort of fell into that, and that launched me into a job as a talent agent, and then later as a casting director. And do you remember the old Bartles and James commercial? The two guys stand there and they said, "I want to thank you for your support." Do you remember that one?
Yes, I do.
Well, I cast them. I cast them. Yeah. So I found that gentleman in Alfalfa, Oregon, believe it or not. I was hired by the advertising agency to travel around the state of Oregon to interview folks, and they ended up casting him from there. So I went from there, and then I became a location manager and was in the film business for about 10 years as a location manager doing various films. And then my son, who was about 3 years old at the time, pulled on my coat leg one day, and my pant leg, and said, "Dad, when are you going to play with me?"
Oh, wow.
And I went, wow. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was like, the film industry is a great career, and I loved it. It was a phenomenal experience. In fact, my son is the reason that got me out of the industry, and he's also the kid now. He's 16, and he's getting back into production. He's got me back into production. But, you're working 12, 14, 16 hours a day,
Yeah.
6 days a week, and, for me, my family was very important. So he pulled at my heart, and I went in and said to my wife, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go do something else. So.
And that's worked well for you.
I don't regret at all the opportunity to have devoted my time to my kids. I chose specifically to work in the home, as I did real estate primarily during the years that they were growing up, because I valued the opportunity to be there when they came home from school. I volunteered a lot at their school activities. I coached them in softball and in soccer and in many different sports, and was available and present to tuck them in bed every night.
How many of them are there?
I have two children. I have a 16-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old son and an 18-year-old daughter.
16-year-old son, 18-year-old daughter. What's their names?
Taylor is my daughter. She's a freshman at San Diego State, and my son Nicholas is a junior at Wilsonville High School.
Will you tell them what you think about them?
Oh,
Camera 2.
Oh, I love my kids. My kids have been. Tell my kids, or tell your viewers.
Well, they'll be watching this, won't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever.
I love you both very much. You know that.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you what kind of fun things do you do in your life, but it seems like the things you've done so far that are supposedly work are fun too, huh?
Well, that's it. I haven't been one to have a lot of hobbies. I enjoy my work, and the work that I'm doing now, I feel tremendously blessed. I love every moment of it. I play a little golf once in a while. I used to play tennis. I hurt my shoulder, so that's kind of challenged my serve. But no, I when I'm not spending time with my kids and really committed to their lives, and I mean, I love hanging out with them more than anything. I mean, I can stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning. Talking with my daughter and laughing. In fact, she said to me, one of the greatest compliments I think I could have as a parent, she goes, Dad, I laugh harder, more, and consistently with you than anybody else I know. So we have a very special relationship. Why would I want to do something other than that, I enjoy that.
I can tell.
Yeah, very much so.
I'm enjoying it too, watching you enjoy it all over again. So you have a partner, a wife?
No, I've been divorced 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
That was a challenging period in my life. Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah.
And are the kids with you?
They go back and forth. They get to have that wonderful experience of sharing time with their mom and time with me.
Yeah. Okay. Would you care to divulge your political persuasion?
Well, I got to tell you, I've been a registered Republican most of my life.
Wait a minute now.
I know.
Rick. Rick.
Sorry,
he loves that.
Sorry.
No, he's a registered Republican and more.
Well, I know, but this last election,
okay.
I registered as a Democrat, and I voted for Barack Obama.
Rick, don't leave Rick.
We lost our camera guy.
No, he's been with me for 30,000 years.
Yeah.
No, Rick.
Yeah. No, I think here's when I heard Barack Obama give his announcement that he was going to run for president, I pretty much knew then. And here's why, is that we are going to some very tough times.
Sure.
Very, very, very tough times. And our country needs inspiration. Our country needs to have somebody that will uplift us, motivate us, look at an opportunity for change, looking at hope. And I felt that he was the strongest candidate to do that. I've seen it over and over again, candidates running for office, you don't really know till they get in. So we'll see how he does as a president. But I do know that we've seen a swell of hope. And I mean, look what's happening. Look at he's reaching the young and the old and the black and the white and across generations, and he's inspiring people to get involved. He raised a huge budget by small contributions. A lot of people saying, I'm with you. So, I wish him well, and, we all need to really get behind, our government now and support them, because, it's going to be tough for the next 3 to 5 years.
Can we talk a little about him and what he's about, or what he may be about right now?
Sure.
there's been some hesitation about his choices for cabinet positions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm one of those, and I think he's got some more retreads from the Clinton administration and the existing Democratic and restructures, and I'm not sure he's going to follow through on his promises on the campaign trail with these people he's got with all this baggage. So what do you think about his choices so far?
When you say follow through on his promises in what regard?
That he was going to do something different. He was going to have change for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And most of these people are part of
an old administration.
Old administration that was not interested in change,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't do anything significant. And they the same old neocon or anyhow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to stuck for
Well,
words.
and that's the challenge that I think about our political system. And I was a poli-sci major. When I graduated from high school, my goal was, and I felt very strongly that someday I was going to run for president of the United States.
Really?
And I have.
It's not too late.
No, and I have that goal still out there. I don't know if I will. It's a tough, thankless job. But I think we look at it. I don't think we as a nation really look at it fairly in the fact that one person should be knowledgeable in all those areas.
Right.
I think that's asking. I think the debate system is a little archaic in the fact that you're throwing questions on somebody and they're being prepped on. I mean, look what they did with Sarah Palin. They prepped her on how to answer certain questions. And I'm not sure that that's the best way to do it. Personally, I think we need to move into an era where the president is the visionary. The president is the person that holds the vision for where they want to go. And they put in place top-notch expert people in those areas, and that should be identified during their campaign. I mean, I think that administration should be, this is what you get, because repeatedly, over and over again, that's what we see is whatever president, I ran for student body president my 8th grade year. I ran for student body and won, and I ran for student body president my senior in high school, and I won.
Mm-hmm.
And what I said in my speeches was all about how to get elected, right?
Yeah.
It's about how to get elected.
Uh-huh.
And if anybody says anything other than that, I'm not sure they're being really honest and fair. So our political system is you do what you need to do to get elected, and then the true identity, the true philosophy or platform comes once you're elected. And so that's what a lot of people had concern about Barack is we don't know him. We don't know what he's going to do. So to answer your question about his administration, I hope that Barack will maintain his vision for where he wants to lead the country and empower his cabinet to follow that vision and take the steps that they need to take to implement the things that he wants to have happen. And you do need to have people. I mean, there's a balance between bringing in people for change that have no experience versus bringing in those that have the experience, the same old, that have the experience that you can then empower them to make change. So it's a fine line.
You're saying it better than I'm saying it. So,
well,
and it's true. I agree 100% with what you're saying.
So.
And the last couple of days, I've heard some encouraging comments he's made, like what he's thinking about health care and what he's going to do about that, and some of his ideas. And this bailout of the Detroit and the Big Three. And it sounds like he's going to be pretty progressive and look for serious change that's going to benefit ordinary citizens rather than the powers that be and the super rich. So let's take a little break here. And if you want, we'll talk about Obama a little more because I want to hear some more of your thoughts about Obama rather than mine. All right. So it's time for a break now for about 3 minutes. In a moment, we're going to put up on the screen a few panels that show information that you may want to make note of during the break. You may want to get pencil and paper right now. We'll tell you about the broadcast schedule for you viewers who live in the Washington County part of the Portland, Oregon metro area. Conversations with Dr. Don shows a broadcast 5 times each week. Typically, a news show is first aired on a Tuesday and is rebroadcast on the following Friday through Monday. And you can get my shows on the internet. You can tell your friends to watch Dr. Don shows on the internet anytime by going to video.google.com and entering Conversations with Dr. Don. And we're going to put on the screen some key Washington, D.C. phone numbers. If at any time during the rest of the show the thought crosses your mind that you'd like to contact the people in Washington, D.C. who supposedly work for us, the citizens, you can take down the phone numbers that'll also be up on the screen during the break. And they want to hear from us in Washington, D.C. A lot of people don't believe that. You can call Washington and tell them what you want and don't want them to do. Most of them really do want to hear from you. We're now going to put up on the screen the appropriate panels, and let's take a break. Mr. Dennis, wonderful director. Mic's off. Oh, thank you for hanging in there. I'm glad you're back. So for you viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people, like most of you out there, about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and what it is that we decided to talk about. My guest tonight is Mark Hughes, and we talked a little earlier about what he's about. So let's continue on. We left off talking about Obama and what he is likely to do for the situation in the country and in the world, for that matter. Mm-hmm. So you think he is going to be able to make some significant changes to turn things around in his first 4 years?
I think it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be very, very tough. Mm-hmm. And I think, I think if for nothing else, and that's why I said that I voted for him, was because of what he can do to uplift the nation. Because, if his policies and the things that we're all having, I mean, look at what's happening with the whole bailout. I mean, everybody's still just scratching their head. They don't really know. People don't know why the stock market is responding the way it is. We're in a point of confusion and in our government and in what's happening, and so implementing specific policies that are going to take us forward and get us out of this mess is going to take time. And he said that in his acceptance speech. Yeah. This isn't going to be a day or a week or a year or a term, possibly. But if he can help the nation to remain positive, to look to the bright side, to look at the possibilities and the opportunities, that's far greater than somebody who cannot inspire us to go there. Now, I think, John McCain is a very knowledgeable person. He's not inspiring. He's not motivating. He's not uplifting. So despite, political points of views and Republicans or Democrats, Barack is an inspirational speaker I think we need at this time.
Rick just went, don't talk about McCain.
I don't know, Joe the plumber isn't talking too highly of him right now.
Yeah, I always pick on Rick. He's my favorite cool person here.
Yeah.
So let's leave Obama for a while. What do you think? What do you think of the mainstream media? Do you think it's objective or left or right?
Well, I think that it's pretty liberal in the fact that I think it's pretty clear that there was a greater support for Barack Obama than there was for a more conservative approach, other than perhaps Fox News. Fox News tends to be a little bit more conservative, I guess. So I don't track it very far, but I think the important thing though is to actually go over. When I traveled to abroad, I went into Europe. I was amazed at the different perspective that they had, that we have. And I think sometimes we have to get outside of ourselves to really learn what we know and what's true, because you hear this all the time that what we know that's happening abroad may be very different than what's really happening, or vice versa. So I think the important thing is to maintain a certain amount of a non-bias with the media, and whether they do that or not, it would be hard for me. I have a point of view that I'm going to try to push or influence. So I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. So do you think of any people alive today or from the past who you found that you looked up to or admired a lot? Any people from history or your family or whatever? Any names come up?
Well, I love listening to Colin Powell, and he is a man that I think he certainly gets attention from people. I think Martin Luther King was a phenomenal person. I think John F. Kennedy was a tremendous person. I think Gandhi had his message that was very powerful. So those are a few.
You left one out. We're on the same page.
What's that?
Jesus. You left
okay.
Hey!
Okay.
Heavy duty dude, huh?
Yeah, heavy duty.
Yeah,
heavy duty.
Yeah. Was he the son of God?
Was he the son of God?
Yeah.
Why is there no doubt? Is there a doubt about that? Is there a doubt? Are you asking that question as if there's a doubt about that? I think that's pretty clearly articulated. Yes. No?
Well, some people say, "Oh no."
No.
So I was hoping to hear that. Yes, as much as we are sons of God.
Well, I think that like my personal philosophy is that the God is within all of us. So that's where I go first.
Okay. So one more trick question, and then we'll go to the subject of the show.
Okay.
What's important?
What's important?
Yes.
Well, I think what's really important, that's actually been an awareness that's come to me in the last year. So I think what's important is for people to really truly live their authentic journey, and that for people to step into that which they, have passion about. And that's part of the work that I do in my family coaching, is to help inspire people to, live the life they want to live. Because we get so caught up with, making money or status or whatever, that sometimes we push aside, that which, like, for example, my son, he is a born actor. He is, he came into this world as an actor, and for him to push that aside and go do something else because he doesn't think he can make it or whatever would be a travesty.
Sure.
So to me, it's and this, I think I said this earlier, which is really what this is about, and where we're going through in these times is an evolution more of this of the human spirit, and the evolution of awareness and people becoming more aligned with, that which they have passion for in their life, and having that connect with a larger universal power that supports that action from, to take place. So I think it's stepping into your authentic journey, stepping into who you are.
How do you know what your authentic journey is?
It's a process. It's absolutely a process.
Oh.
And a lot of that is really being willing to have the courage and strength to step into it. I know the work that I'm doing now, it's funny, I found a card that I did in a workshop years ago that said, what's my goal? It was to do socially responsible films and television series, specifically for parents and teens, and speak and coach around parents and around families. And the obstacle down below it was to make enough money to support my family financially. And so for all those years, I lived in that belief that I can't make money at it, and so therefore I went off and did other things to make money and pushed aside our passion. And now, interestingly enough, at my ripe age of close to 51, I'm becoming more aligned with that, and I'm doing my life coaching, and I'm working with parents, and I'm working with teens, and I'm started a nonprofit film production company, and I'm doing all those things. And so my message is to inspire people to not put it off, to listen. If that's really what you're guided to do, go do it. Let go of the status, let go of the money, let go of whatever that is. Follow follow that voice that says, I have a passion for this. I want to do this. Because I think that's what really God intends for us. I don't think God, really is intended for us to say, here is your God-given talents, and here's where you are going to fly like the eagles. But I don't want you to do that. I want you to take the safe approach and go over and do this because you can make good money at it. I think God wants us to step into our authentic journey, our authentic self, and express ourselves in the way that we were meant to from the day we were born.
My hunch is that not many people do what you're talking about.
I think that's probably true.
And why do you think that is?
Because at some level, I think they have beliefs that they have to be a certain way or do something different. And I think that I can tell you, here's what I think is a large part of it, and it has been. I can speak for myself, and I can speak for the people that are stepping into what it is they want to do. It's scary. See, if you do something that's natural and easy, and you don't have an investment really that you can get there, then there's not a whole lot of energy around it, right? But if you say, I'm going to go out and be a professional singer, and that's where I have my passion about it, there's a lot of fear around that. There's a lot of trepidation around that, and there's a lot of energy around, well, what if I fail? Okay, so my daughter was a very good volleyball player, and she did club volleyball for about 5-6 years, and it was kind of a spendy thing. It was about $5,000-$6,000 a year to do that. So we spent some serious money supporting her doing her volleyball, and she was a very good volleyball player. Got most valuable player on her team, but she got to a point. She said, "Dad, I don't want to do this anymore." And she says, "I hope you're not going to be mad at me." I said, "Why would I be mad at you?" She goes, "Well, I know you've spent a lot of money, to support me to do this, and and I'm not sure that this is the way I want to go." And I said, "I would rather have you be 85 years of age on your rocking chair on the porch and say, I did it, and it wasn't my cup of tea. I tried it. It wasn't really what I wanted to do," rather than to sit there and go, "Oh, I wish I would have played volleyball. I wish I would have gone for it."
Yeah.
So I encourage, my kids and those people I work with to go for what it is that they really want to do. And my job is to support them as a life coach. I'm like the basketball coach or the soccer coach that helps them with different tools, different moves, different methods on how to kick the ball or hit the ball or shoot the basket or whatever the case may be, but to apply that in life. How can I take my passion for whatever it is I want to do with my life, and how can I put that into a formula, into a life plan to step into it and go for it and know that it'll be okay if I stumble along the way.
What about if I follow my passion, and my passion is such that I want to be a great singer, and I'm good at singing, and then good singers are a dime a dozen.
Well, yeah.
What about being able to feed myself and my family as I go along following my passion? What about a person who says that?
I think you have to. I mean, my son being the actor, you brought up a perfect example. 2% of all actors can support themselves financially.
Sure.
And I've told my son that, right?
Uh-huh.
So he knows that.
Uh-huh.
Now, if he pursues it, he's going to give it all that he can to make that happen. Now, he might have other jobs along the side to support that, to help him get there. But at some point, he's going to, like my daughter, there's always, when we set a goal and we have a passion for what we want, where we're going, we always have the right to renegotiate, to change. My daughter said, I want to do volleyball, and then said, doesn't work for me. Going after your singing, you go with it with all the passion you can. If you get the results you want, and you're out there singing your heart out, and maybe, and again,
and you're starving.
But you know what? Here's the truth of the matter. If you're singing, if you're singing,
yeah,
and you're loving it and you're enjoying it, why is money important? See, that's where we get hung up. We get hung up on the attachment to our outcomes instead of the act of actually doing it. If you could sing every Sunday at your church and sing to your heart's content and be fulfilled in that way, perhaps that's the journey you're going to find versus I'm going to be, an opera singer, or I'm going to be, putting out records and CDs and what have you.
So, life coach. I think you've talked about what a life coach is. Is there something more you can say about it? Pretty
A
straightforward.
life coach is just basically, in my situation, I work with parents and teens and families. I basically assist them to reach certain goals or help them pursue their passion by helping them to be a little bit accountable to the decisions they make and the steps that they're going to take to get to where they want to be.
Why do they need you, a life coach?
Well, I think it's a matter of just why do people need a coach in any kind of a sport? It's good to have somebody that can keep an eye on the game and to help keep you a little bit accountable. I mean, when I played sports, if I had a choice about running lines on the basketball, I would have said, nah, it's all right. I'll pass. I don't think I want to do that. But a life coach or any kind of coach is going to help identify the goals you want to do and then help you to be accountable. Now, the other thing is that it's really easy for a lot of people to see what other people could do, but we sometimes have a very hard time about seeing it within ourselves.
Dispassionate.
Right,
looking at what's going on. Yes, of course.
I mean, I'm in the same category as everybody else, and I have people that work with me and help identify for me what my passion is and help me articulate what I want and how to go after it. Because we get lost in it. Because we have that voice that bounces around, yeah, but, or who am I, or whatever the case may be, that takes us off course. So it's nice to have somebody else to help, remind you to stay on course.
You sound like me just a few minutes ago when I got my shrink hat on. what's the difference? Life coach, shrink, whatever, generic.
It's a new concept that a lot of people, aren't familiar with. I'm not a therapist. I don't do therapy and I don't do counseling. I mostly just help empower people to live the life that they want to live.
And that's what a good shrink does, in addition to probably a few other things, magic or whatever.
Sure.
So then, can you think of a particular family or situation that you feel particularly good about the result of your working with them?
Oh, I see it.
A number of them, what?
Oh, yeah. That's the part that I feel so blessed about is that I started young in my life. I was in my late teens when I got introduced to doing personal growth workshops and took a lot of seminars, and I've taken everything from communication to parenting to all over the board, and I love it. I love that. I love the self-discovery, and so for me, when in the work that I do everything I can to help them discover it for themselves. And when they discover it from themselves, it's so much more powerful than for me to say, tell them, did you know you're doing this? Or da-da. I want them to discover it. So I can tell you that I had a woman. I do a workshop. It's called The Parent and the Teen: Preparing Yourself for Independence. It's about helping the teens to make better choices and to learn how to take accountability and responsibility for the choices they make. And it's to help the parents to create an environment that supports that. Because they interviewed like 1,000, they interviewed, I think it was about 1,000 people, 1,000 kids, and they said, if you had an opportunity to go and talk to someone about your problems, who would you talk to? Who would you want to talk to? They'd say my parents. And they said, well, when you do have a problem, who do you go talk to? Almost all of them said, everybody but my parents. So there's a disconnect there.
Why do you think that is?
Because I think parents need to learn how to create an environment that's supportive of the kids coming to them and talking to them. And what unfortunately happens, me included, when I became a parent, is that I wanted to help fix it. I wanted to give them suggestions. I wanted to give them guidance. I wanted to give them, counsel. And then when they'd screw up and they'd come to me and they'd confide in me that they'd made a mistake, I'd reprimand them or say whatever. So my shift has been to create an environment that my kids can come talk to me to just about anything, and then I throw it back to them about the choice that they make, and then turn it loose on, turn them loose. When we have infants and we help them to walk, we get them to a point that we allow them to try to walk on their own, and they fall, right? And we don't scold them. We don't go up and say, shame on you for falling. You fell. You failed. Shame on you. Shame on you.
Now and then we see a few parents like that.
Yeah. Well,
that
maybe we do. But in general,
yes,
we make it okay for the toddler to learn how to walk, that he's going to fall. But when we get to a point that they're teenagers, the stakes are a little higher, but we need to let them make their decisions sometimes and fail.
Oh, yes.
And failure, I think, is an unfortunate, in my opinion, is a very misunderstood point of view, I think, because I think we have a stigma about failure is a bad thing. Failure is an opportunity to celebrate. Failure is an opportunity to look at what you did and grow from it. So when my kids make a mistake, or the kids, the teens that I work with, and they obviously have made a bad choice, I'm not going to scold them and say, oh man, you really screwed up. I'm going to say, what did you learn from it? How are you going to do this differently? What are some choices that you made that you would make differently? What are the choices that you're going to make now to move you towards where you want to be, versus is the choices you're making moving you away from where you want to be? And then go. Turn them loose. And what I've experienced, if we can, and unfortunately, if we start later in life, when we get teenagers that are 17, 18, and they had their own, lives established, and you turn them loose, they're going, yahoo, I can smoke pot every night. This is great.
Because they've had
along
the way.
Haven't had, they don't, the challenging part that we're seeing with our young adults is they're going off to college and they're not equipped. And I went to the orientation for my daughter at San Diego State. I went in and sat down with the head person of admissions or whatever, and he said, we're experiencing kids that come here that don't know how to cut the umbilical cord, that know how to make decisions on their own. And so my mission with the work that I do is to help parents empower their kids to make good decisions now while they're in the home, to guide them and to support them and to give them examples, and so that when they do leave the home, they're better prepared to make decisions independently and take responsibility for the decisions they make.
Because what you're talking about is stepping in and breaking the links in the chain of succeeding generations, one after the other, who teach or not teach their offspring how to get along in the world and how to be successful and follow their dreams.
Well, we have a generation of parenting styles that is the helicopter parent, and the parents have been, so pampering their kids so much about, protecting them, and they're the ones. They're having. I think I read that Merrill Lynch was having an orientation for the parents of their new employees, so the parents were coming in and participating in their children's employment, and we've gone to such a degree that the parents are so involved. They're calling the teachers, they're calling the coaches, they're so involved. They're going in for the job. They're sitting in the waiting room when the kids go in for the interview. We have done so much as parents to want our kids to be happy and want our kids to feel special and to know that they can get whatever they want in their life, that they can achieve the goals that we want, that I think we've gone a little too far with giving them entitlements and overly protecting them. So then they go out in the world and it's like, how do I do this? I don't know how. And I wrote an article about if we want our kids to be accountable, then we need to, as a society, show what accountability looks like.
Of course.
I mean, take the whole economic thing, the bailout.
Mm-hmm.
What I think is amazing is that we've allowed the financial institutions to make the kind of decisions that they've made, okay, that has put us in a serious problem. Now, where are they at introducing ideas, concepts in terms of improving the situation? We have sent a message loud and clear that you can make a mistake like that, but then you don't have to take accountability for it. They're stepping back and looking for the government to come in and bail them out. And so
What a model, huh?
and we say to our kids, well, you need to be responsible. Well, they're watching it on TV at night that we are a society letting people get off the hook. I keep asking, when are the banks going to step forward and say, here's our solution? Have you heard one? There isn't.
No.
So they've created this mess and we let them off the hook. And then we wonder why, when our kids create a mess, why does we let them off the hook?
So I'm wondering now, as we're talking about what's going on and where we are in our country with the meltdown, we're going to need a whole lot of folks like you to prepare this next generation to be more responsible and to have informed decisions about where they're going in their political and social life, and in leading our country and the world in a direction toward peace and love and caring for each other.
It's a huge problem. It really is. It's the millennial generation is a generation of kids that are struggling to find their place out there. Now, I don't like to generalize because at the same time, this is a very bright generation of kids that are highly technically advanced. I mean, they're the ones you give your 9-year-old kid how to do something with the computer and the gadgets, and they know it. They've done things in groups, so they're great team players. They have a very strong humanitarian point of view. There's a lot of very good things about this generation. But this generation of kids in the workforce really needs to be treated more in a mentoring program and in a group kind of setting and in a fun environment, because that's what they want, fun.
I'm being notified that we better shut down pretty soon here.
Okay.
So some closing thought or comment for my viewing audience that would be useful for them,
A couple
inspirational, whatever.
A couple of things.
Take it in about 30, 45 seconds.
Okay. I think the most important thing...
Number three.
Number three. Thank you. The most important thing when you're working with your teens is to have clearly defined boundaries and clearly defined agreements. Bring them into the process of helping to make decisions and making agreements. If they don't agree to it, then you're going to have a problem. So freedom is greatest when the boundaries are drawn, okay? And ask questions. Step back from giving advice, step back from counseling them or reprimanding them, and help guide them by asking questions, more and more questions that help them to have their own self-discovery.
Great, sounds good. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
It's close for us. It's about time for us to stop. Keep those pens and pencils handy because you may want to jot down something that we'll show you in the closing credits. And thanks again for watching. I invite you to give us feedback, both positive and negative, about any aspect of the show. I mean it. It will help us to give you a better show in the future. And my email address, friendlydon@aol.com. Write to me and let me know what's going on. A few public service announcements that I'd like to make. I want to tell you about the Alliance for Democracy, an organization that belongs to a progressive populist organization that looks at political and social issues on the local level and even on beyond the local level. There's our local chapter there in Portland. There's the phone number and our website. And if you call David Delk, he's our co-chair, and tell him you want to come into some of our meetings and participate. The ACLU, I've got to always tell you about the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. Without the ACLU, I think rights would be down the tubes completely instead of being threatened pretty much by the existing administration. The American Civil Liberties Union and the ACLU hotline. Let's put that up on the board, please. The ACLU hotline. This is a number you call if you think that you've been stopped because of how you look, rather than being suspected of something that you've done wrong, like driving while black or you look like an Arab or something. The ACLU wants to know about it. There's a number to call. The American Humanist Association, the AHA, that's an organization that I belong to. I'm a humanist minister, I mentioned before. That's a great organization. We're a bunch of people who are agnostics or atheists, and we're concerned more about what is really important as loving human beings, whether you believe in God or not. The local chapter of the AHA is the Humanists of Greater Portland. We meet every Sunday morning at 9:30 in Northwest Portland. We have regular programs like regular church folk from 9:30 to 11, and we have speakers, and we have discussion groups and a whole bunch of interesting stuff. So come on out and join us on Sunday morning. And what else can we tell you about? All right, so it's time to say goodnight. Thank you, Rick, and thank you, Dennis, and thank everybody here in Jay for crewing, and the wonderful teachers and managers at TVC TV Studios in Beaverton. I want to thank you viewers in other parts of the country. And thanks, Kevin, for being my friend in Seattle. Kevin, my new friend in Seattle, thank you. If you live in another part of the country and watching this show, contact your local community access cable TV studio for information about when they plan to broadcast Dr. Don's shows in the future. And remember, KFC, that Kentucky Fried Chicken, Dr. Don's KFC, kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable to you too. And you. And you. Thanks again for watching. Good night.